Ethereum will start to outperform Bitcoin in 2025. I feel pretty confident about that.
Bitcoinzilla stands out with its simplicity and clarity. We've crafted an experience that anyone can dive into, whether you're a crypto expert or just a new to the crypto world. Now, guess who keeps his eye on us? The author of best-selling book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And we want to take this opportunity and thank all the people who trusted us, and we read every comment. And the best part, it's free. Subscribing now means you will get all new information for free. Don't just follow the trends, stay ahead of them. Subscribe to Bitcoinzilla today and enjoy the new edge. In this video, let's discuss these topics and more.
As always, normally when Bitcoin hits all-time highs, it continues to accelerate from there. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that you could argue that the ETFs help hold forward some of those returns. And so in 2020, around this time, the market was generally trending up, right? I mean, we had the pandemic crash, and then the market basically exploded up into the summer, a brief pullback in August and September, and then it kept going up into Q4. We're not really seeing that this time, right? The summer has been relatively boring. August, September haven't been that great. But I think what's really happening is, and it goes back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's the effects of monetary policy. So for instance, if we were to take a look, and by the way, I mean, I will be completely honest with you guys. I really think Ethereum could eventually go lower from here before it really gets back on track. And the reason I say that is because what I think has happened is every cycle, there's this thing that happens with Ethereum. I don't know why exactly. I always find it fascinating. I do consider Ethereum to be a blue chip. I only consider two blue chips in the industry, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And there's this thing that happens every cycle with Ethereum. And it's fascinating. And it's basically the ETH Bitcoin pair, right? It's the ETH Bitcoin pair. And I think we could learn a lot, honestly, from the ETH Bitcoin pair. And basically what happens. And this is why I think, going back to your observation, which is absolutely valid, is like, what's going on with this market? It just keeps on crabbing. And frankly, it's been going sideways with a slightly bearish bias, right? I mean, Ethereum has been putting in lower highs and lower lows, same with Bitcoin, ever since March. But I think the reasoning, the reason for it, and I think why people might be losing their way on this is, look, every cycle, ETH Bitcoin goes through this pattern right here. And essentially what it is it sets a top, and then it sets a low, and you can see that after it does that, it puts in sort of like a lower high. Right? And same thing here, right? A top, and then in between this bottom, lower high, and then sort of slowly bleed back down. This time has not been different, right? This lower high right here, that was actually going into the merge, which I'm sure you guys remember was a pretty big event for Ethereum. I mean, it had been something that they had been working up to for years and years and years. It finally happened. But what's fascinating is every cycle we go through this process where ETH Bitcoin, it tries to go up, it comes back down to earth, goes back up again, lower high. And then it gets into this phase right here, right? Where it's just above the range low that it's set in between the two peaks, but it's not enough to really turn it back around. And then what happens is after it sort of crabs in that range for a number of months, it eventually breaks down, right? It eventually breaks down. So you can see that the first time it broke down in 2016, it had a fake out. It was actually in June, right? So it was actually in June of 2016. It broke that prior range low. The cycle after that, it occurred in July, right? The cycle after that, you can see it first started to break down really, right around January. There was a wick below it, and then it really started to go below it in March, around the time that Bitcoin topped out.
Bitcoin whale activity has significantly declined since the cryptocurrency's price peak in March, but analysts suggest this isn't a bearish signal. Whales may be waiting for the next major buying or selling opportunity. According to Santiment, Bitcoin whale transactions of $100,000 or more have dropped by 33.6% since Bitcoin's all-time high of $73,679 in March. Ethereum whale transactions fell even further, down 72.5%. Santiment notes that this reduction in whale activity isn't necessarily a bearish signal. Whales, while it's holding at least 10,000 BTC, often act during extreme market sentiment, whether bullish or bearish. With the Crypto Fear and Greed Index showing a score of 31 fear, some investors see this as an opportunity to buy. Bitcoin has been down 0.97% over the past 30 days, trading at $58,360. Crypto traders, including Ajit Khurana and Dawn Crypto Trades, are unconcerned about recent volatility, citing it as a normal part of Bitcoin's market cycle. While Bitcoin whales have reduced their activity, market watchers see this as strategic, waiting for ideal market conditions to make their next move.
Now, what's fascinating about this chart is if you look at it through the lens of Ethereum, right? So look at it through the lens of Ethereum, and you can see precisely how it has played out every single time. So look at ETH, and remember, the first time it broke support in 2016 was in June, right? And then if you look at Ethereum in 2016, it topped in June. And from there, ETH bled about 70% before getting back on track. And then it went up in the post-halving year, right? It went up in the post-halving year, which is normally the 1 year of the cycle where Bitcoin dominance goes down, right? Every other year, Bitcoin dominance tends to go up. It's the post-halving year where Bitcoin dominance goes down. So that was the first cycle, right? That was the 2016 cycle. And then if you look at what happened next, right? ETH Bitcoin in 2019. When did it break down? It broke down in the summer, right? June, July is when ETH Bitcoin broke down. In 2019, ETH USD topped out in, June, July, right? So you can see that both prior cycles, ETH USD followed that pattern, and after finding that top, it bled about 70%. Now, it's easy to get sidetracked on that and say, well, why include the pandemic? But I'm not, right? I mean, I'm purposely excluding this pandemic crash. Like, we're just looking at what happened going into the end of this year. So because of that, right, when I'm looking at ETH Bitcoin, I'm like, all right, well, we saw a fake out here in March and April below the range low, kind of like 2016. And if you go look at what ETH did, that's exactly when it topped out, right? March, right before the Bitcoin halving. And so far, it's already dropped 54%, right? So to a large extent, this time has not been different, right? It actually is playing out in a very similar manner. And what's fascinating is if you look at ETH Bitcoin, the breakdown 2016, 2019, after that, right after that, that's when Ethereum bled 70%, and then it started to pick back up the following year, right? The following year. And it bottomed out in both 2016, ETH USD bled until December, right? So December 2016, December 2019. And then it picked back up the following year. And you could argue that it was picking back up right here in 2020, and then the pandemic happened, right? And it kind of threw everything off course. What's fascinating, if you fit the data points, these data points with these data points, sort of like the non-bubble data points, if you want to call them that, if you fit those data points together, you get a curve that looks like this, right? So this is the logarithmic regression band. And what's fascinating is every time ETH Bitcoin has broken down, 2016, 2019, and now 2024, every time ETH USD bled into Q4, into the regression band, and then it had an explosive move the following year, right? The following year. And then that year where it has the explosive move tends to be the where it starts to outperform Bitcoin. That tends to be the post-halving year.
Bitcoin's price surged due to lower U.S. inflation, significant ETF inflows, and strong technical signals. The cryptocurrency market is gaining momentum as inflation fears ease. The latest U.S. Consumer Price Index (CPI) report revealed a lower than expected drop to 2.5% inflation. This easing inflation makes Bitcoin more attractive as a store of value, driving price gains. On September 11, spot Bitcoin ETF recorded $44.32 million, with Fidelity's FBTC leading at $12.57 million. This surge in demand indicates increasing confidence in Bitcoin's long-term prospects. Bitcoin has gained 3% this week, breaking resistance at $57,022 after the CPI report. Currently trading at $58,281, Bitcoin is nearing key resistance at $59,500, with the potential to rise to $63,500. Bitcoin's mining difficulty reached a new all-time high of 92.67 trillion, strengthening the network and boosting investor confidence. Bitcoin's strong fundamentals and easing inflation are driving its current upward trend, with analysts eyeing further gains ahead. Ethereum has underperformed Bitcoin in 2024, reaching a 40-month low in its Ethereum/BTC pair. Key factors include lower demand for Ethereum, Bitcoin's dominance, and sluggish Ethereum on-chain metrics. Ethereum is down 34% over the last 90 days, while Bitcoin has only dropped by 15%. This led to the Ethereum/BTC ratio hitting a multi-year low of 0.04057, signaling a shift in investor preference toward Bitcoin. Spot Bitcoin ETF have seen more success, driving Bitcoin's price while Ethereum's impact from spot ETF remains minimal. Bitcoin's dominance of the market has steadily risen, reaching a 40-month high of 58%. This trend shows that investors are allocating more funds to Bitcoin over Ethereum, further weakening Ethereum's performance against BTC. Ethereum's network activity is slowing, with daily active addresses down 7.7% over the last 90 days. Additionally, Ethereum's dApp usage dropped 19% in the past month, while competing networks like Solana and Tron saw significant growth. If you've been with us so far, a big thank you. Don't forget to subscribe for free to BitcoinZella for your daily news. The link is waiting below. That's all for today's crypto news. Stick around for more updates, insights, and analysis on cryptocurrencies. Share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more exciting content.